So hopefully you have already attended or at least viewed the archives. If you're joining us for the first time, you're probably going to start to feel overwhelmed tonight because we're going to wrap up and package this final project and get it completely done tonight. So before we get started, kind of start off this session the same way as we go throughout the project here. I'm going to show you guys where we're getting the materials from. Hopefully, again, you've already seen this. So if you have, this will be a repetition. We're only going to spend a couple minutes on this. We go to the Indaba Music website. You want to make sure you log in using whatever method you want. You're more than welcome to sign up with Facebook if you want to. Basically, Indaba, to give it to you in a very succinct paragraph form, it's a free website that gives you an opportunity to remix current artists' work. And when I say remix them, you're going to actually get the stems from the artists themselves. So I'm going to quickly show you how to go and find those files for doing your final project. If you're just now waiting to do your final project, you've got an uphill battle because we've been really working on this all month long. So hopefully you've already gotten yourself started and you've already done this process. We'll go ahead and log in here. And this is not the correct account. Tell you what, guys, this is not the correct account. I've got a couple accounts here. Let's try this. All right, we'll go ahead and just use this for now. You're going to navigate to the Opportunities tab. You can see up at the very top. This is basically going to take you through and show you all the current artists that are up for remixing. So you can see we have Mattis Yahoo. So this is a remix. And this looks like, I think this is going to be somewhat new. This is the song we're actually currently working on, Stampa. But we'll go ahead and show you. Since I've already got the files for this, if I go to actually click on this, you'll see it actually tells me to, oh, actually I haven't. So we'll try this one. Entering the opportunity, basically you'll be given 3 keys for you to use throughout your stay here with Indaba. So it's a free website. You don't have to pay any money to download these files. However, if you want the full advantage of the account, you'd actually have to pay for it. I believe it's $50 a year. For the purpose of our project, you don't have to do that. You can simply use the free version. It'll again give you 3 different opportunities. So if we're going to go to Mattis Yahoo, you can see here, oh, this is actually linking to Beatport. I bet you they have linked up with Beatport. That's very, very cool. Somebody had a comment on here about Mattis Yahoo has some pretty good tracks to work on for the price of 1. Cool. I'm actually going to refer back to one of these others just because I haven't had a chance to go through. So if you want to listen to the artist in advance, simply hit the play icon. When you hit the play icon, you'll get a player that's going to show up at the bottom here. And see, you got a player. I'm not going to bother to play the song, but obviously you could audition the track in advance so you could listen to it and see if it's something you'd really be interested in. Now, when you go to enter the opportunity, you're going to be presented with a bunch of legal jargon. Go ahead and accept and continue. Now, this is where it kind of gets important because once you accept and continue, if you scroll down, you'll see you need to download all the stems. Now, if you leave this page before downloading all the stems, you will not be able to get back to the stems. So once you go to this page, make sure that you do not leave this page. Download all stems. Cool. We can see if we take a look at my download handler via Safari, this is now downloading. It'll be in the background. So this is going to go ahead and download. Again, once I leave this page, you cannot get back to this page, so it's pretty important to make sure that you stay on this page until everything is downloaded. Once you get the files downloaded, they will show up in your downloads folder. We'll go ahead and hide Pro Tools for right now. Just kind of giving you a quick peek behind the curtains on how we got to be to where we are. You can see here in my downloads folder, we currently have that file downloading, and it's going to give me all my stems. Now, what I typically am going to do with this, though, is I've already created some folders. Let me show you my folder hierarchy. This folder we're downloading, I've already created a folder. It's on my music folder called Artist Remix Files. So I'm actually going to download it and do some renaming of the files and put them into this folder. All my Pro Tools sessions, even the one we're working on today, they reside here in my Pro Tools folder. And then I also have a sounds and samples folder that we're using for all the downloaded files that you can get from your Avid account. Your Avid account, go ahead and navigate to Avid and log in. This will only take a second. I'll go ahead and log in. Mine's already auto-filling. Cool. And once you get to this page, you want to go to View My Product Details. Under View My Product Details, you'll see an area that shows you everything that you have. Basically, here's Music Production Toolkit that I purchased that basically is almost obsolete at this point. Here's Pro Tools 10. You can see I don't currently own 11. Please remember, do not send us any 11 sessions for this final project. I won't be able to open it because I don't own it. But here's the loops that we're talking about. So if you download all these files here from Big Fish Audio, this will give you more than 8 gigs, a little over 8.5 gigs worth of loop content. And that loop content, I've gone ahead and stored it. I'll show you where I've stored it. You guessed it, sounds and samples. Created a folder inside here called Avid Materials, and here's all those loop libraries. They're nicely categorized. If you take a look, they also give some really great information, like they give you the beats per minute, as well as the actual key signature of the song, which is going to be really helpful if you want to use their files and their melodic files. You'll need to make sure you're matching the key of your song. Which brings us to another important topic concerning the website of Indaba. On the Indaba website, the actual information concerning the song that you're working on, you can find that underneath this little section here, frequently asked questions, because you're going to want to know the tempo and the key signature of the song. So if you click on FAQ for frequently asked questions, and if you scroll down, you'll see Stampa is in the key of E minor at 164 beats per minute. BPM stands for BPM. So that's basically your tempo. So that's what you would enter into your session. Now, once you've got that all sorted to where you have everything downloaded in the correct location, then you're going to basically open up Pro Tools, import the files, and what we are currently doing is we're still working at replacing files from the original stems. So you can see here we've done quite a bit. We've gotten rid of their original percussion, and we've added our own percussion. We've gone back and we've replaced the bass. We're probably going to replace some other files today. What we're going to work on today is several things. First of all, I'm going to import some more percussive pieces because I want to stack my percussion and get it real nice and hot. I also want to take a look at my bass. We already replaced the bass, but as I was listening to it, what you guys saw me do this evening is you saw me go ahead and review my work. We've already gotten a good ways along in this project. But whenever I open up a session, I always want to listen from beginning to end. It gives me an idea of where I'm already at currently and where I know I want to be. So I heard some things that I know I want to keep. I know I want to keep the sax part. I like that sax that we were listening to that happens towards the end of the song. So I know I want to keep that. I also noticed I like their effects. There's some effects track going on that gives it some atmosphere. I'm probably going to keep those as well. Now the vocals, these are some vocal effects parts. We're probably going to go back and listen to these. And we've got some vocal harmony parts. I know I'm going to want those as well. And then up top here, we've got the lead vocals. Pretty much when we're done with this, for the most part, I want to be able to get rid of everything excluding the vocals and have everything be replaced with materials that I've created on my own. So basically, everything inside the session pretty much needs to get... everything inside the session needs to pretty much be replaced, excluding the vocals. If you want to keep one or two miscellaneous tracks, like effects tracks, we'll go back and we'll listen to these in a minute. I might actually leave some of these, or maybe even edit some of them and put them in different locations. But basically, everything has to be done inside of Pro Tools. No other program can be used. The whole point of this month is for you guys to learn Pro Tools and be able to utilize Pro Tools and show me that you know how to operate Pro Tools fluently. Your upcoming classes are going to just expect for you guys to know pretty much everything we've gone over this month. And they're going to add on to what we've already learned. So if you think your head's spinning right now, wait till you hit some of these other courses later on in your program. So just make sure that you guys are doing absolutely everything inside of Pro Tools, and you'll be good. So I was listening to what we've gotten so far, and I was listening to this bass part, and it's not too bad, but I'm not super happy with it either. What I'd like to do is I'd like to see a little bit more going on as far as this bass part goes. And this bass part pretty much just repeats itself as it goes throughout the entire track. And I was listening to my new bass here. If we solo it out and listen to it, I wasn't super thrilled with it though. So it's not bad. I was considering maybe going back and doing some tweaks to that. What we could do is, I think what I want to do is, I was listening to it and it sounds like it could really use some emphasis on the original sound itself. In other words, I think I'm going to throw away everything that we've recorded and go back to the original. So here's the original parts that we were using. The recorder on the track, we should be able to hear these come through now. Let's actually take a look and see what we got going here. So here's the original MIDI parts. Let's see what we have going on for virtual instrument here. So this virtual instrument is triggering vacuum, which is on this channel here. It's actually, looks like it might not be triggering it anymore. Let's take a look at our instrument track. Bring up the vacuum. Okay, so the original instrument is triggering this item here. Whoa, little beach ball. Beach ball scares me. I'm not seeing any MIDI signal happen on this channel, so something's going on I need to take a look at here. Let's take a look at the output for this. I'm going to quickly hide our instrument here. We can see we've got the MIDI information, but I'm not seeing any MIDI signal happen here, which means this MIDI is not really going out to trigger anything. And I need to figure out why. So let's see why. It's usually easier for me to kind of figure out the routing by looking at the mixer view. And let's just look at the two tracks that we're dealing with. So I can see this is going out to vacuum 1. Okay, I see what's going on here. Let's go ahead and actually send this out the normal output. There we go. So what happened was, when I went to go record this down to this other track, I named it New Bass. So why we weren't hearing it is because our output here was set to bus 3 and 4. Bus 3 and 4 would have needed to be record armed to actually hear that. Still not getting passed through. Well, nevertheless, I'm going to redo this anyways. So let's just set our output so we can actually hear what we're going to do. And I want to show you the parts that we're going to work with so you can see what it is we're actually going to end up doing with this. Because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this throughout the track. So let's take a look at the length of the lead vocals. I'm going to duplicate this out. I'm just using Command D to duplicate. And I'm actually seeing that we probably need to take a look at the original bass track and use it as a guide track. So here's where we're going to use import session data and go back to a previous session. You can see I'm in version 4, and we've been slowly kind of plugging away at version 4. Of course, we've gone through versions 1, 2, 3, and 4. But I'm going to go back and actually import the original bass track and use it as a guide track to see where the original bass was, so I can keep the kind of the same uniform form, the same form of the song. File, import, session data, and let's take a look. Let's find this. The song is Dynasty Electric, and the song is Euphoria. So if we go back into my Pro Tools, and if we were to show you where this really is, it's Music folder. I'm going back into my Pro Tools folder where I store all my Pro Tools sessions. We're looking for Dynasty Electric. You see I've got several versions here. In fact, version 4 is probably going to be inside of version 3, and of course it is. Let's just go back into an earlier one where I know it's in. So let's take a look inside of here, and we'll go open the actual session. Let's try version 2. And I'm looking for my bass, very top track. We'll say new track. So this is basically going to import the original track as I had it initially. And it's right next to here. We've got all the other tracks hidden. This kind of gives me a template and shows me how far the bass should have been pasted out. So we can see here, duplicate it on out. We're done. Excellent. Now, what I also wanted to do, the reason we did this, I'm actually done with this track now. I don't need it anymore. I know I've got it in another session. I just simply used it as a guide track. I could have honestly probably gone back and listened to the original song, but you can see this gave me like just a visual cue. So I can now delete this track. Remember, I have it in another session, so if I delete it from the session, it's really not going to affect anything. So I'll go ahead and we'll delete it. Cool. Now, what I want to do is I actually want to create some automation, and let me let you listen to what it is, and I'm kind of looking for it to happen. I want to actually, this plugin, I want to do some automation on the cutoff itself. So if we listen back here, this knob, the cutoff, is going to affect the sound pretty drastically. So we'll hit play. I want to adjust the resonance too. Resonance will give it some character as well. So that could be pretty cool, and it'd be even better if we could actually automate that. So let me show you how to automate plugins. To automate a plugin, it's actually pretty easy. Now, if you look on the plugin itself, there is a section of the plugin that would actually deal with automation. And that's right up top where it says auto. You click on this little icon right underneath auto. It deals with automation. It's showing you every different parameter that can be automated. So there's a lot dealing with this plugin. If you want to add something to be automated, for instance, if I'm looking at this, we can deal with, here's a cutoff, low pass filter cutoff. We could set up anything we want to. So you can just double click into these items, or you can just select one and choose add. You notice it's going to add it to this column. Or if you put something in this column you didn't want in this column, simply double click it and it'll remove it. Now, this is kind of the old school way of adding stuff. And in fact, if you get confused as to what's what, because we've got several different parameters that could be named very similar, here's kind of a quicker way. If you hold down, you know what I'm going to do too? Let's go and turn on Keycaster. That way, anytime I'm doing key commands, you guys can actually see what it is I'm doing. So let's do that for you real quick. Cool. So with Keycaster, anytime I actually do any kind of movement of any kind, you should be able to see exactly what I'm doing as far as key commands. There we go. Cool. You guys can now see my keys. So in the plugin itself, if we're just looking at the plugin, a really quicker and easier way to automate a specific parameter is if you hold down Control, Option, and Command, and you actually just click on the plugin itself, or click on the knob that you want to automate. You can see you have Enable Automation for Low Pass Filter Cutoff. Cool. Now if we go and open up the automation window, you can see that's basically the same thing. I just showed you how to do it here, but now I showed you how to do it just on the surface without having to go up and figure out what it is. You also might notice that you have a little green icon on the plugin as well. So it's showing us this is now ready for automation. So what I want to do is, if we play it back again, there's basically where I want my cutoff to start, and then I want to start opening up. So we can see where it's giving us basically a range just by adjusting the knob. I see if I want it to go from about here to about here. And what I'm going to do is, to make this easier on myself, I'm actually going to go and draw this in so you can actually see the automation happen inside of Pro Tools. So to see that, we actually need to look where the plugin is at. It's actually on this aux track, because I think I showed you guys the old school method, and I was showing you how to use an individual MIDI track as well as an aux track. And then later on, I believe I showed you guys you can actually combine these two tracks if you use an instrument track, so you don't have to have two tracks doing the same thing. The plugin, you can see it's actually on the aux track itself. So let's actually name this track. We don't want to just leave it wide open called aux1. This should be called Vacuum A, or just Vac A. That way I know it's the vacuum track. If you go look on this track within my edit window, right where it says volume here, we're looking at volume automation, but there's really no volume automation going on for this plugin. We actually want to automate the cutoff. And so here is the position where we saw the plugin at when I left it alone. So when I left the plugin, and you can see as I adjust it, you can see it changes here. So I liked it at about this position. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that position, and then we're going to draw some of this in. So what I want to draw in, probably going to do, there's a couple ways we could do this, but I'm just going to go ahead and freehand it here a little bit and show you guys what I'm talking about. So let's give ourselves, a good 16 bars is probably a lot. Let's give ourselves 8 measures. do some automation here, and then we'll basically apply this automation across the rest of the track. Gene asked what that shortcut was again for automation. So let's go and if you don't remember the shortcut, it's not a big deal. Just look on the plugin, look at auto. You can add it just by going and double clicking off to the side here. And I'm not sure why chat's coming through right now. Shouldn't be, but sorry about that, guys. The quick key way of doing it, though, is if you just hold down Control, Option, and Command. It's all three keys. If you're looking at your computer and you're looking at the keys on your laptop, it's all three keys right to the right of your spacebar. Control, Option, Command, and simply click. And you can see I've already got it enabled. So I can disable it here, and I can also enable it here. And when it's enabled, you'll see it's green, so I know it's ready for automation. Then all I need to do is come pick it over here. So that's what we're seeing as far as our automation lane inside of Pro Tools. And then we can go and we can draw it in. Now, for right now, it's on auto read. And I want it to be on write. That way, if I want to just grab this knob and write this automation in, all I have to do is hit play. You don't have to hit record or anything. In fact, I don't really need to have this. This is just so that we're hearing it. But for this track itself, the reason I had it record armed is so that when I hit my keyboard, I have a full controller over off to the side. And that way I could actually audition it. I don't really have to have the track and record. Basically, the track that I'm using here, there's no way to record anything other than automation into an aux track. But you'll see here if I'm set for a write. That way, when I hit play, all I have to do is grab this knob, and it's going to write the automation. So let's go ahead and let's do that now. In fact, let's drag this down so you can kind of see what's going on. So you can see the automation being written in. Okay, so I've written in this automation, and I'm pretty happy with it. I think we're just going to stick with what I've got. If we go ahead and play this back, let's make sure this defaults back to reading. It defaults back to auto latch, but let's set it for read. That way it'll read the automation. And you'll watch, and you'll see this knob will now move with the movements of the automation that was written in. And you'll notice at the end, I tried to get it to return back to almost where I knew I had it in the original. That way it would make that smooth transition and fall back to the original location. So listening to this with the vocalist will give us a better idea of what it's really going to do. But also, if we duplicate our automation out, it should basically be the same throughout the song. So a couple things I want to show you with this automation. In some of these spots, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this automation all the way out. Command D. I just selected it and I'm doing Command D, which will just duplicate it all the way out. However, I want it to be a little bit different in some spots. So what I really want to do is I might actually bring the entire automation down slightly. So notice I just grabbed it, and notice I'm going to use my trim tool. I just brought it back slightly. Let's see what it sounds like in this mode. Now notice it fell well below where I originally started off, but let's check it out and see what we've got going. Now, I think that's fine, and here's why. I'm going to let that ride because I want it to happen that way through the verse sections. Verse sections are really explaining what's going on in the song. We briefly talked about this being chorus A and chorus B, and I'm not sure which of the students brought it up, but this is probably really should be a pre-chorus. So in pre-chorus, I'm going to bring it up slightly. So just for this section, we'll bring it up slightly just to tease a little bit more. And then once we get to the actual chorus, or what we're calling chorus B, here's where I'm going to bring it up even more. I wanted to really emphasize here, probably more like what we originally had it. So through these sections, it's going to be slightly different. Now, what I get to do is I get to copy and paste these, So Command C will copy this automation, because I want to do the same thing in the other portions of the song. And what this is really going to do is when we go and play it back, it's just going to emphasize where the verses happen, the story's being explained. Where the chorus happens, here we're driving home the theme of the song. So in that case, I want the song to give a little bit more oomph in those sections. So we'll copy our automation for those sections, and they're going to get pasted. They're going to get pasted here. So notice it's the same exact sections, really, Command V. So Command C, and I'll just basically duplicate since we have, well, we got a bridge there. And I'll tell you what, this last section, I want it to be pretty pronounced. So copy this and paste here. All right, now if we go back and we listen, you're going to hear some pretty good transitions. In fact, let's just do it through this last section, and that way you'll get to hear. We'll start off from the bridge, and we'll play the full song. That way you can hear the context of how this is going to sound. Now, again, I'm just kind of throwing this together really quickly and fast because we've got a lot to cover tonight, but I did want to show you some automation. Automation is one of the coolest parts of Pro Tools. And I actually, in the past, went out and bought a control surface, a 002. They don't even make them anymore. And I don't know how long they're going to support those. I don't think they're supported anymore either once they move to Pro Tools 11. But I bought the control surface because it had automated faders. And I could actually flip all of the controls from a virtual instrument down to a long throw fader and record my actual hand movement. And it's just really, really cool because there's so many parameters inside of Pro Tools that can be recorded and recorded basically with your hands in a hands-on style feel. So that's pretty much that. Let's go ahead and let's listen to this in all its full glory so you can see what we've done here now.
To the stage, what a love station. If I know you said that can't take you down. If I know you said that can't take you down. You want to baby, tonight.
All right, you get the idea, and you can see what's going on here. So we got automation cooking along. So it looks pretty good. All right, cool. We'll go ahead and we'll move along. So what I really want to focus on now is I like what we've done with the bass. Quite honestly, I think maybe it's now a little bit too soft in some of the sections. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to turn the whole thing up. We're going to grab it. Basically, what I just did is notice with your selector tool, if I select once, you're putting an insertion point. If you double-click, you're going to select just one region here. If I were to separate a region, notice if I double-click, you're selecting one individual region. If you triple-click, you're going to select everything that's on that track. So to make this quickly and easy, what I did was I just double-clicked with the selector tool. It selected everything on that track. It immediately switches to the trim tool. I'm just going to bring everything up. Now when I go to actually record that down, I think it's going to sound a little bit more like what I was intending from the start. So let's just give it a whirl just to get an idea of what I just did. Okay, I'm noticing too, I went to go turn down my volume slightly, and the volume did not turn down. In other words, if you notice when I went to go play this back, let's take this back to the beginning of the song. you can see that volume knob is jumping right back to its original position. So what that is you can see there are automation breakpoints here. I just need to delete them. You can double click them, which will delete them. You can option click them. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight them and delete them. That'll allow me to adjust the volume again. I thought the volume was just a little bit loud. Cool. I'm going to move forward from the bass because we're actually going to get into some mixing here in a minute. So I don't want to focus too much on the bass because we're actually going to nail that down pretty tightly here in a little bit. For right now, I think I'm going to leave the track just the way it is and not actually record it down just for the sake of time. And if that's the case, we don't need this track anymore. So we'll delete this track. I just right-clicked on that track in order to select it and get rid of it. And what I actually want to focus on is some of our percussion because the percussion is starting to get a little bit all over the place. So what I want to do is get rid of all tracks, hide all tracks except for the tracks I want to deal with. First of all, I know that we were actually dealing with, at some point, we were dealing with a beat that I had created to show you guys how to do select and split notes. So for that information, if you're not sure how to do that, you'll have to refer to last week's video. But we still got that beat here, and I don't think it's actually getting utilized in the song itself. So let's see actually where that was getting used and where these parts were going out to. Looks like these are all going out to expand, and I don't see. Here's our expand track, and it looks like this currently is not in use, which means it's probably inactive. So let's reactivate these guys. Cool. Now I got my tracks active. We should probably be able to hear the beat that's created here. And the reason I just realized that we have these all already inactive is because I have them right here already recorded down. And so here is that original loop material. We've already got it going throughout the entirety of the song. So there needs to be some attention paid to this because it feels like this information is starting to get buried in the track. So for right now, so that I don't mess up the song anymore, let's go ahead and let's do a save as, and that way, because I basically want to get rid of these tracks. When you guys turn in your work, you don't necessarily need to get rid of these because I'm going to want to see them. Of course, they don't need to be active, so you can just say hide and make inactive. But as we get moving along, I'm probably going to want to start to clean up behind me. So let's do File, Save As, and we're going to call this V5. And that way I just have a backing up point. We can see I've got a V3 in here and V4 in here, so this is fine. This is a good location for this to get saved. And now if I actually did want to go back and delete these tracks, no big deal, because I have them in that other session. So we can simply just duplicate them here. I'm sorry, delete them. Cool. Now I've got the original beat here. And it doesn't sound too bad. I'd probably do a little tightening up to it. We're going to work on that in the mix. I think we got some other tracks that are being used here that probably have some loop material going on. Let's kind of see what we got going on here. These are called hardcore drums, but it's got some lettering in front of it. Let's get rid of that lettering because that number is just kind of misleading when I'm trying to look at it in the mix window. And same thing with this track. I want to actually solo these out and see what they are, what kind of role they're playing in my song. So we're going to call this Perk Effects A and Perk Effects B because they're really just effects track that I'm using. And so here we go. Percussion Effects -A. And what the heck, we'll go ahead and just copy this, Command-C, go over to our next track, Command-V, and paste it, but then this one we'll call B. Now we just quickly rename those tracks. So the first half of this is just that drum beat that we created, and I did it halftime, and then you'll notice that it picks back up into being full time. Solo it out. So they're really just kind of adding as ghost tracks. I think they're a little bit too wide open. I'm probably going to do some filtering to them to get them to sit in with my original piece here. So what I mean by that is if we listen to this, if we listen to the stuff mixed in together, these guys are almost starting to fight with each other. If we listen to this with a kick. I'm hearing a lot of high-end content in this that I really don't need. And if we go and we listen to the clap with it, you're going to find that these other parts, everything is, they're starting to clash with each other. In fact, just taking them down in volume a little bit helped a lot. We're going to throw an EQ on here, and I'm going to suck some of that high end out of there. In fact, let's switch up to the 7-band EQ that we have got more bands. Usually what I'm going to do with this is I'm always going to duck the bottom end off of it anyways. So if we go back and listen to it, you'll hear that all the low end's gone. That way the low end from my kick will jump through. But I'm going to do that using a 7-band EQ, and that way we'll whittle away at some more of the frequencies that are kind of offensive as well. So what I mean by that is we're going to turn on our low pass here, sweep off the low end, and I'll go ahead and I'll play this back so you can hear what it's doing to it right immediately. So I didn't like some of the high that was in there as well, so we're just going to duck a good bunch of that out. Now notice that I took mid-range out as well. That'll allow me to put maybe a little bit of the highs back in. Your mid-range is typically what's going to mud up your mix, so if you're ever finding that things are becoming muddy, it's almost always going to be low end and mid range. I was hearing a lot of high end information. Notice this is now becoming more of a ghost loop to help support our original loop now. Sounds a little bit more natural. Feels like it fits in with the actual track and it's not sticking out so harsh. Let's see what's going on at the very beginning of the song too. There's another piece happening that we were using from our loops library. I'm actually going to add a little bit more to our percussion too. Not sure how much more. We'll go and probably add some congas or something else. I'm going to go use from our loop library, and then we're going to end up doing an audio submix to get these all to fit right. So we're going to start working on today using some traditional time-based effects. We're also going to work on creating audio subgroups, and that's going to help us manage the session a little bit better, especially when we have a lot of percussive things going on. Let me see what's going on with just the one track here that we're dealing with. Just this guy. Let's see what's going on. Well, this is great because at the very beginning of the song, we don't really need to have the entire loop in the song from the start. We can kind of get rid of this because I already have this ghost rhythm going on at the beginning of the song. So if we were to unsolo this and play this back, this will all fit in a little bit better because this is more of a ghost rhythm. It sounds like our main rhythm needs to kick in a little earlier though. So what I mean is it needs to kick in there. So I took it out a little too early. Just selecting the parts we want to get rid of. Delete them. Cool. All right. So let's go and let's add some more parts to this. I want to do just a couple more little percussive parts. We've already got a good bit going, and I don't want to clutter this up too bad. I'm noticing there's some stuff going on my hi-hats that I don't really like either. Let me let you hear what I'm talking about. I've got an open hat and a closed hat. Let's actually listen to them so you can see what they sound like. The closed hat, I actually want it to close a little bit earlier, so I'm going to go use a Dynamics plugin. We're going to use a gate. We're just going to make this gate try to close it up a little bit quicker. Let's see here. I want to make sure you guys are using the same one. So, expander gate. And this already has some settings in it, so we'll go and just roll through some of the settings that are already here and see what it sounds like. Notice it's really closing off there, so that's not going to work. Now, if I bypass it, you'll hear what I'm talking about. There we go. There, it's just not eating up as much space. So if we go back and listen to the rest of the pieces parts together. Cool. It's just going to help the track to open up a little bit. Those hi-hatted pieces of information can really kind of eat up the mix quick, and I was just hearing that those needed to close a little bit. I just like my hi-hats to be really tight, especially in a track like this. We've got vocals that allow the vocals to pop through a little bit more. Let's go ahead and add a couple more details to our percussion that we already have going. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set this in a loop so we can actually listen to it, and let's pull up the workspace browser. Options semicolon brings us to our workspace browser. We'll go navigate back to where those samples are that you guys should have as well. So users, John Barry, here's my music folder, sounds and samples. Waiting for this to update. We got a little beach ball going. All right, sounds and samples, Avid materials. Now notice here, I'm purposely using the workspace to import these in because I actually want to audition these in time with the music. So here we go. We're looking at basically the same thing in our workspace. Get back here and we'll take a look. I usually am liking to add just little small pieces of percussion. So if you have your metronome symbol highlighted here, when you go to play Pro Tools back, Pro Tools will actually play the song back as well as audition these sounds in time with your current session. That way you'll kind of already have an idea if it's going to work out or not. Some of these samples will be louder than others, so you actually have a volume knob here so you can adjust it as well. I love the workspace, and the workspace it really helps your workflow as far as knowing whether something's going to work before you even bother to import it. So I'm going to go ahead and play my Pro Tools session back. those shakers, yeah. Even. Okay, I've added multiple tracks here, and they're all going to be back at the beginning of my session. So let's take a look. We've got them all here at the beginning of the session. I like most of these. There's going to be some stuff we're going to do to these, though. I'm noticing that some of these are not quite totally in sync with the loop material we have, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. First of all, though, let's go back and let's actually get some names properly going here. We've got numbers that are happening at the beginning of the files. I don't really like that for my name. This is going to be tambourine. I don't care that it says hip-hop, so we can just call it Tam, in fact. I like keeping names short because that way I know what it is, and it's easier to read when we're viewing in the mix window. Big long names don't really fit very well, and I don't need it to say hip-hop or stereo. Those are shakers. I want to say shakers. These are my congas. We're going to use them. I like them. And notice everything was there. All those elements were there immediately for us to listen to, and we knew exactly what they were and whether they were going to work well in the song. There were several of them there that if I hadn't had the song working in the background, I wouldn't have probably used them. I wouldn't have known to use them. Now I have two different cowbells going on, so we're going to have to do cowbell A and cowbell B. So let's go back and name that last one. Notice to name tracks, if you hold down Command and use your left and right arrows, once you're in the naming track window, it'll just simply switch to the next track. So that's great. That's really helpful because that will help you to name tracks that are closely adjoined to one another, or if you're just trying to go through and name your session, it'll quickly allow you to go through and name those tracks. So cool, I've got a good bed of great percussive pieces that are going to complement the rest of the song. However, I'm noticing some of these tambourines, I probably might want to leave them a little bit loose. But some of the other elements may or may not work well within the entire context of the song. Let's get all the files to be the same length. Cool. Let's actually paste these files out where we got the majority of all of our action happening. So let's, oops, not the wrong. Command D to duplicate. This should have everything together now so we can hear all these together. We might find that we're going to have to do some mixing to some of these parts right away, and I'm probably going to hear some things that are going to get loose. So let's start off and just bring them in one at a time with what we've already got stacked as far as our percussion. So we'll listen to it. Notice I'm also starting to set up the sonic palette as far as where I want things to go. I haven't done any panning throughout the session, so this is where you're going to start to see me start whittling away at the panning on this and start to put things where they should be within the stereo field. Okay, cool. These all sound pretty good, but they're starting to chew up my original loop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly create a group here. This group, I'm only going to create it that way I can actually delete it. So Command G, notice it has just the tracks that are highlighted with the names. And the reason I'm doing that is I just want to bring these back temporarily. So this could actually be a nested group. We could call it, oh, I don't know. We'll just call it perk for right now because these are all percussive pieces. What this allows me to do is just grab these and pull these all back as one now because they're starting to chew up my original loop material. So I've already got kind of a general mix going, but now I need to bring them all back slightly. And I lost my loop. Let's get the loop going there again. And I probably go and drop these in and out throughout the song, but I just want to go ahead and show you how to get that set up. Now, I pretty much have a good mix of where I like things already. So I'm probably going to delete this. I'm going to create one big, this is basically called an edit or a mix group. Right now, whenever I created this original one, it was actually created as both. And there'll be more about that will be discussed in the lecture that you guys, your required viewing. So I won't spend a whole lot of time because we actually go over that in detail. In fact, somebody asked me about identified beat. That's also covered in those required viewings. In fact, it was in last week's as well. So make sure you get up on that information. That's one of the more important things that you guys need to take away from this course. So let's go ahead and I'm going to delete this group for right now, and I'll recreate it, but I'm going to include everything. So we'll delete this group, delete, and we'll create one big group out of this. So I kind of like where everything already currently is as far as my mix levels. I could probably work a little bit more on the actual panning positions. In other words, my kick is here. I think we need kick my clap off to the side just a little bit. Closed hat and open hat, I'm going to set those off to the side just slightly. And I'm just trying to give room for all the individual instruments. And typically, I kind of set these up nearly the same every time. When it comes to loop materials, these are recorded in stereo. However, stereo sometimes can really eat up a mix. So you'll notice I hard panned most of these. This percussion effects, I'm actually going to tuck this in slightly so it's not quite as stereo as it currently is. And that'll make it set to the mix just a little bit better. I got the shaker straight up the middle. Tambourine, I actually kicked it out just a little bit because I felt like it was really giving a lot of shimmy to the track itself. We'll suck that in just a little bit. And this percussion effects, I'm going to actually run that straight up the middle in mono, which will actually start to make it a little bit louder. So if I go back, we'll listen to it. So it looks like these percussion pieces for right now, I'm just going to copy and paste them throughout the entirety of the song. Probably I'm not going to have them at the beginning where we have that little intro part because that intro sounded good the way it was. In fact, let's just kick them in where we've got vocals. And in fact, I can create a little volume ramp on these as well. So what I'll probably do with this is I will make these into an actual region group. A region group is going to paste these all together. And what this will help me do is it'll help me control the overall volume for all these as well. If we go Command Option G, notice they all were painted into the same color. And that way, if I go to edit across one, it's going to edit across them all. For instance, if I want to create a fade in, it creates a fade in for all of them. So if I wanted to help introduce these parts, we could create a fade in that comes right up into the verse. And quite honestly, it's probably going to chew up a little bit of the mix if I do that because we've got vocals coming in there. But for right now, let's go ahead and just paste them throughout the entirety of the song. Cool. Now we've got some nice percussion pieces. If we go back and want to try to manage these, what we really need to do is if we created an edit and mix group, Command G, you can see we have all the tracks here. We can choose whether we want it to be just an edit group, which would mean in the edit window, when you saw me select, it would select across all of them. If it's going to be just a mixed group, then when I go to edit them, it won't edit them all together. But in this case, I've already created a region group out of them. For right now, we're just going to make this both an edit and a mix. You can also decide what attributes you want them to follow whenever you create these groups. So Somebody's asking, do you have to adjust before you group? Well, yeah, you do, but you can actually change after you adjust. Let me show you what I mean by that. So we've created an edit mix group. So it's all over here. So if I go to grab one of these, it grabs all of them to turn them up or down. So that may or may not be the desired effect. You may not actually want to have that. If you want to suspend the group, if you hold control, I can adjust one of these to be whatever I want if I hold control, because it's now ungrouped. If I let go of control, it's now regrouped. I'm going to undo that just so I don't mess up anything I was doing earlier. But you get the idea for what's going on here. So you can also suspend the group here, or notice if it's not highlighted, the group is no longer active, so I can go and then change the fader to be whatever I want. But once the group is active, if you want to temporarily suspend, just simply hold control and grab a knob, and you'll be off and running. Now, this is different from an audio subgroup, and we've asked you guys to create audio subgroups. So audio subgroups is a part of taking all of these and then piling them all over into one track. Well, why would you want to do that? There's a couple reasons why you would do that. For one, first of all, what I want to do is I need to get a little bit of treatment that goes across all tracks individually, and then I want to, since there's so many members here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 members to this audio subgroup, we're going to help to start managing them. Whenever you see a choir sing, there's always a director, and we need to kind of get some direction going for all these tracks. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sweep the low end off basically all of these tracks. The only track I'm going to leave alone is going to be the kick. So if we go to EQ, we're going to pull up a one-band EQ. I'm actually going to set it to be a high pass. We'll roll this back just a little bit. Anything below, anything say around 100, I want to get rid of it because that's going to eat up space for my kick. And I'm basically going to put this on every single track. So you're going to watch, I'm just going to option drag this to every single track except for the kick track. And that's going to get rid of any low end that might be in the track itself. Let's see what we got going here. Oh, we had stereo tracks here. We have a mono track here. Let's just do the same thing here, but we'll pull up a mono version. One band. It's real simple. I just made it a high pass, and I rolled it off right around 100 there. It's really probably about an 80 where the roll-off starts, but it goes down and pretty much gets rid of anything below 100. And I'm going to add that to any track that's not my kick. Now, immediately what that did is that gave space for my kick track, because my kick track is going to have information that's definitely going to be down there in that low register. And kick is one of the more important pieces, especially in any form of dance music. The kick is going to be the drive of the song. So this automatically gave the kick some space. So that's one of the first things I'm going to do. I'd probably go back and do some EQ and compression, some more fine-tuned EQ and compression on each individual track. But for right now, and for the sake of time, we're just going to move forward. I want to show you guys how to create an audio subgroup. So an audio subgroup is going to allow me to have all of these tracks that we're dealing with, all 11 tracks, and pile them over into one track so we can just deal with one track whenever we're dealing with all of them as a whole. So we're going to create a stereo aux track, and I'm going to create stereo because I already have some stereo and some mono. They're going to get bussed over into this track. So let's create a stereo aux track, stereo aux input track. We'll call it percussion sub, or perc sub for short. And we'll set it to be an individual bus. So it's going to be a stereo bus. Notice the buses are already in use. You can see they're amber. So just pick any track that's no longer in use as far as the bus path. 9 and 10 is not being used. So I want to assign bus 9 and 10 to go across all these tracks. I'll highlight all the tracks and I'll hold Shift and Option. Shift and Option will clutch those tracks so that just those tracks' outputs will be now set to be 9 and 10. So now all of these tracks are being controlled by this track. I'm also going to solo safe this track. All I did was command click on the track. Soloing the track is totally different from solo safing. So now this track is controlling all of these tracks. Notice when I go to solo them right now, they're all becoming soloed because I have that group on. So if we got these soloed and we play it back, it's all being controlled by this one fader. And if that's the case, then I want to get a little bit of control going on this track. I'm not overdriving this track so far, which is great. I'm looking at my shakers. I'm seeing I got a meter happening on my shakers here to clear your meters, it's option C will clear any meters that you have. That tells me I need to throw a limiter on that track. I'm really surprised it's not actually showing up over on this track because all of these are getting summed together and they're showing up on this track. But let's go ahead and let's throw a limiter on this track. I'm going to use a limiter that you guys can use. It doesn't come with Pro Tools, but it is free, and so I'll show you what this is. If you go to Dynamics, yeah, I'm using something called L2007. Where did it go? Is it right in front of my face and I don't see it? Where is it? Oh, here we go. L2007. I like this limiter because you basically can't hear it. Make it smooth. Set it for normal. Typically, I'm also going to do this on this percussion sub as well, but I'm not seeing any peaking happening on this track, so I'm going to leave it alone and I'm just going to use it for control. And again, typically I'm going to use an EQ and a compressor and a limiter here. I'm not really feeling I need to. I like the punchiness of the drums. I think the drums are fine just the way they are. So I'm going to leave them alone. The other tracks I probably want to do some of this to would be the vocal track, which we actually need to do some treatment to as well. So I'm fine with my percussion. I think the percussion is good for now. We're going to leave this one alone and we're going to move forward. But just so you guys understand, all of these tracks now are all going out of the bus 9 and 10, all coming into this track, bus 9 and 10, and they're all being controlled by this track. So if I wanted to, I could never actually look at these tracks ever again, and I can only deal with the percussion sub anytime I'm dealing with the volume level of my overall drums. They're now happening on this track. So if we go back to the beginning of the song, we play it back. I'm hearing some major flaws going on. That bass that we did earlier, that thing is really, really loud. It's really hot. So let's go back and let's take a look and see where it's at. Let's find it first. It's going to be this track here. So let's get back to it. Check this out. Another cool thing is once you have a group over here, if you control click on this group, it's going to show you just the members of that group. We should probably go ahead and edit this group and actually add the percussion sub to it. So again, if you're showing all tracks and you just want to see a member of a group, if you control click on that group, it's going to hide all the tracks except for the member of that group. Let's actually modify this group and let's add the percussion sub to this group as well. That way, anytime that we actually control click on this, we're going to see all members of that group. Plus, let's start to get some uniformity going. Let's actually start to color these. So let's pull up our color palette, Windows, color palette. Let's check off that we want the clips in the tracks. That's fine if we want them to all be the same color. I really don't care about that, but I definitely want the tracks themselves to be a specific color. I typically color all my tracks, at least my percussion tracks, brown. I typically will do my vocal tracks yellow. That way they stand out. But that way when I'm looking at my mix window, and if we have to shrink the tracks down, now I know quickly and easily by looking at my tracks what's what. Anything that's brown, I know that's going to be a percussion track. So it just kind of helps so you can visually see. I also mentioned my vocal tracks. Let's see what we have for vocals. I've got a couple different tracks in here that are dealing with vocals. Let's get them all together. Vocal harmonies right next to each other. Vocal effects. I actually want to listen to these vocal effects and see what these are real quick. I think these are just airy sounds.
Oh, and I know you said no, you said no, but can't tell you. And I know, you said no, you said no.
So these are vocal effects tracking happening in the background. So let's go ahead and let's make sure these are all the same color as well. Notice I've got their name highlighted here. We'll go and we'll open up Windows, go to color palette. I like mine to be bright yellow because I want them to stand out. I want to be able to see where my vocals are at all times. That way, if I have to get to them to do any kind of doctoring or fixing, they're right there for me. I can see exactly where they're at. Notice I've got all the vocals happening at the same time as well, as far as the position of where they are. So my vocal harmonies, let's kick vocal harmonies off to the left and vocal effects off to the right. That way the main vocals are right up the middle. Cool. Where's my bass track? These are all dealing with bass. I usually want bass to be a color that stands out as well. And I typically like my bass tracks to be right next to my percussion tracks. So let's move all these guys over. Just grab them by their name, and then just simply grab them and move them over. And the reason I do this is because typically when I'm going to work on stuff, I'm usually going to A and B the bass against the percussion to see where they stand. In fact, we're going to do that here in a second. So we'll solo our percussion tracks. I'm also going to solo the bass tracks. I actually want to hear what's going on with these two and the way they're interacting with each other, because this is where most of the energy is out. So let's take a listen real quick. Let's see what our master fader is doing. I don't have a master fader in this track, and I have a feeling we are overloading the output and we can't even see it. You guys at home probably couldn't hear it, but I was hearing quite a bit of distortion. I didn't see exactly where it's coming from. So let's go ahead and let's add a master fader, and I have a feeling we've been overriding that thing for a while. Let's take a look here. Maybe add some distortion. I usually like to dirty up my bass lines a little bit, maybe add some distortion to them. So let's see here if we can find some distortion. I actually think it's setting in the mix a little bit better too if I bypass it so you can hear what's going on where it's just dry. Alright, cool. Somebody's asking about, are the stock effects good within Pro Tools? Stock effects in Pro Tools are excellent. It used to be in the past, when Pro Tools came out, let's see, up until version 7 of Pro Tools, there weren't any virtual instruments in Pro Tools. And the stock effects that came with Pro Tools were pretty dinky. They weren't very good at all. Since then, they've coupled up with this company called Air, and Air's created a lot of really nice plugins for Pro Tools that now come with Pro Tools. So while I own the Waves bundle, I went out and spent a ton of money. Geez, what year was that? I don't even remember. 2002 or 2003. I went out and bought the Waves bundle. And you kind of needed it back then because Pro Tools, again, didn't come with a lot of plugins. Now it does. And you really don't even need Waves at all. In fact, I rarely find myself using the Waves plugins because the plugins that come with Pro Tools are just perfectly fine. So notice where my volume level is. We've jacked it way the heck down on the master fader here. So we've got a lot going on. I noticed I was hearing distortion. Had to pull the fader back quite a bit. And now what I want to switch gears here and do is I want to talk about vocal effects. We've already have a vocal effects track going on here, but we need to talk about time-based routing. It's one of the most heavily missed things on this project. Just to point out the most heavily missed items. The most heavily missed items were automation, which we've already shown you, time-based routing, which we're about to show you, and audio subgroups, which we just showed you. And all of these are covered again in detail in the required viewing, in the lecture atmosphere, but not in a final project kind of situation. So I want to go ahead and show you how that's done. Let's pretend like we don't even have these tracks. Let's go ahead and, for right now, I didn't mean to record enable. Let's mute these tracks. And let's just show the one vocal track and let you see what you need to do as far as time-based routing, because again, it's one of the more heavily missed items, and I know there's still going to be people, even though it's reviewed several times throughout the month, there's going to be somebody out there who kind of gets it backwards, and that's all right. Let's go ahead and cover it now. That way you understand how it works. Time-based routing is any time that you're going to use a plugin that deals with time, like reverbs and delays. You're always going to use this method. They always need to be set up on an aux track, and then a send will send a copy of the signal from this track over to the aux track. Let's just do it. That way you can see what we're talking about. We'll create a stereo aux track. Let's put a reverb plugin on here. I will pick, I know everyone in the class has Deverb. So let's use Deverb. And let's take a look. I don't want a huge hall. We're going to use a plate. I'm probably going to bring the plate time back a bit, but first let's give it some signal so you can see what it sounds like. So I'm going to create a send. A send will create a copy, and this copy will allow us to adjust the amount of reverb. We're going to use bus 3 and 4. We can see it's not in use. Bus 3 and 4, so then the input of our aux track needs to match bus 3 and 4. So now if I solo save this track and we solo out the vocal track, let's set up a little loop point for us to hear the vocals in so you can hear what's going on. I'll go ahead and expand the view so you can see what we're actually dealing with here. So this will be the vocals here. We're going to hear them dry.
It was like a dream.
And if you want to hear reverb,
dancing in the stars to the beat of the drum machine.
You simply turn it up.
Now here I go. I feel it in my butt.
That's a pretty long decay. You can hear the end of the word "buh" just going on kind of far. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to adjust the actual size of the room.
My soul, and I know you said no, that it can't take you there. And I know you said no, that it can't take you euphoria, euphoria.
Now the way I treat reverb is if you can hear the reverb in the song, I feel like you're using it too much unless you're using it for an effect. So we now kind of need to drop the song back in and see what this sounds like with the song. Well, what do you know? I've already got that group we created earlier. Control-click it, solo it. I can bring the vocal track back up again, and now I can actually hear it with the actual beat itself. So. Notice I'm not hearing it right now, and the reason I'm not hearing the reverb effect is because I soloed the original track so we can hear it, but the reverb's happening on aux track, and the aux track is not solo saved. This is why you guys saw me use solo save for the audio subgroup we used earlier. So if you hold down Command and you click on your solo, it'll become grayed out. That way, whenever you solo the original track, we'll hear the original track, but also the send, which is creating a copy of the signal that's sending over here from our level here, will let us hear the effect as well. And right now I can hear the delay time, the decay time is a little long. So this controls the amount of wet dry now. If I were to just take a reverb plugin and slap it right on the insert, you can do that, but let's see what happens when we do that. Let's make this track inactive real quick. And by the way, if you do this, you're going to get this wrong. I'm going to count you off. So what I'm about to show you, I'm not asking you to do this. I'm showing you why you do not want to do this. So I can throw a reverb plugin right on top of the vocal track. Reverb, deverb. But now listen to what happens.
So here I am.
It's completely wet and reverb, and you don't have any wet and dry. Okay, so somebody in the class has gotten smart and they realize, wait a minute, there's a wet dry value right here. Yeah, but the value of 0 to 100, if I were to automate that, that's only 100 positions. Even MIDI has better timing and better resolution than that. Even MIDI has 127 steps to it. So we're talking about really, really poor automation and really just not very good resolution. Here, we've got nice resolution, at least 1,024 steps on your long throw fader. So this is going to give you an added benefit of being able to really precisely dial in your reverb. So you don't want to throw them right on top of the audio track. Anytime I see reverbs delays on the audio track itself, you're going to get that wrong. So just understand they always have to be added to a aux track, and you do not want to bust the output to the input because that's just like putting it right on the same track itself. You want to use Ascend. Ascend gives you a control level for the wet dry amount for the effects. So just make sure that you're always using this method. We'll go ahead and we'll reactivate this aux. Cool. Well, let's see. We have really nailed out the main topics. I'm probably going to do the same thing here. Let's do this for delay too. And then let's revisit using delay with our reverb. And then I want to show you a couple more things as far as cleaning up and how you're going to send this to us. But outside of that, we've pretty much covered all the topics we needed to cover today. And I could have added a lot more to this song, but I want to give you guys some question and answer as well. So first of all, let's do some tidy up and let's show you what we need to do to really deliver this song. Because right now, if I deliver it the way it is, it's going to be pretty big. Let's take a look at the file size of this song. Go to Music folder, go to my Pro Tools folder. It's called Dynasty Electric. I see I've got it here. We're now currently working off version 5, so any of the audio files are associated with this session. So this is the session we're working with. Command-I will actually give us information about the size. Wow, not too bad. So far, this session is only 827 megabytes. However, I know we can get that down substantially smaller because we have a lot of files in here that are using up just a lot of dead air. Like if we notice here, look at some of these files. Some of these files have spots where there's nothing going on at all. So we can get rid of that information. I want to show you how to do that. So first of all, let's take a look at the session as a whole and start managing this thing a little bit. I also want to show you guys a couple other things that maybe might spark some inspiration for you as well. Let's hide some things from our view. We did do some good organization with getting some tracks colored. Probably should have gone back and replaced some of these other tracks. I like the sax. We're going to leave that. Probably should have gone in. I didn't really have time to replace any of these other tracks. I'm going to leave that, guys, up to you to do on your own. But what I do want to do is going to get a little bit more organization. What do I mean by that? Well, I really like to have, again, vocal tracks always have at the very top of my session. Master fader, I really like that to be away from everything else. Here's our aux. I believe that aux is going to be our verb, so let's go ahead and name that. You don't want any tracks that don't have a specific name. So we did a reverb. I said I wanted to do a delay. Let's put that here. Most of my aux tracks, anything that's an aux track of any kind, I like to actually have that happen after the master fader. That way when I'm looking at my mix here, I know that my master fader is going to be all the way over here. Any of my aux tracks are going to be to the right of it. You guys don't have to do this step that I'm showing you here in the percussion sub. I always want any kind of auxes to be away from my master fader. This is just, I'm giving you suggestions. But this is just how I like to operate. That way I know where things are at within my session. I can quickly and easily see things and get to where they are. So we have the reverb here. Let's do a delay. Shift Command N, create a stereo aux input track. We'll name this delay. Delay. Let's put the delay plugin on there. I'm going to choose an extra long delay. Extra long, coolio. In this delay, we're going to turn up the feedback. If you don't turn up the feedback, you're only going to hear the delay happen once. We'll set that side for 52, and we'll set this side for 79. That'll be a whole note. We'll do the other side a half note. Or also roll off a little low-pass frequency. Make it sound a little bit more natural. And let's actually automate one of her words so that that one word alone will have the delay on it. So let me show you what I'm talking about. We're almost done here with this, but let's find the original vocal. And let's figure out what bus we're going to use. We're going to use bus 3 and 4. Let's choose bus 5 and 6 then. 5 and 6 are not in use, so we can use it. And let's just make sure the input for the delay matches. Let's also make these guys a different color. That way I know what they are. Window, color palette. I'll make them orange. Excellent. Now I know what they are. Any of my sub tracks, like for my percussion sub, I want to make that stand out so you know what that is. Not really sure why we colored that, but we did. I believe that's going to be our vacuum. Let me see what we got on this track. Vacuum with the distortion. Right. Okay, we did that because that was our bass track. That's why we did that. That's fine. I can leave that the way it is. So we've got our delay track set up. To really simplify this, notice how it gets kind of confusing seeing all these tracks. That's why I will go and hide my tracks and then just show the tracks that I need to be dealing with. That way you can really kind of tell a little bit better what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I want to automate this send level. Because what I want to do is I want to automate and actually have the delay happen on just one of the words as it falls away. Like from this bridge section, I want a word to basically delay into this bridge section. So let's listen to what word that should be. It's probably going to be the very last word of this section. Well, let's just take a listen and see. So. Okay, so that last U, I want that to automate. So I basically want to automate the send level. So if we go look on this track, we want to go to the send level. Cool, now we're looking at the send level. It's currently turned off. But if we want to automate that one last word, we can actually even turn on grid mode and actually use our grid to our advantage because we know we want that to happen on that one word. So then using the time grabber, we'll create a couple automation points here. And we'll just simply automate just that one word. So this pops up just for that one word. So if we play this back, you'll see that this signal is going to be sent from this level. So it's off, then it'll be turned on, and that one word will be delayed away right here, so we'll see it. Let's go ahead and we'll solo safe this as well. Because right now we have this soloed, and without solo safe, you're not going to actually hear that delay. And I heard nothing. What happened there? Bus level, 5 and 6 level, cool. Okay, I think I forgot to set my input. That's what happened. Bus 5 and 6. There we go. And if we actually play that with the song, you'd actually see that is in tempo with the song. So if we solo these so you can hear them, we'll bring up the original track. We'll highlight over this section that we're listening to. Give it a whirl. Let you see what this sounds like. I'm even going to change my grid mode so that we can get that full bar. And we are not hearing this. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, it's not soloed. Durkadur. So that's really cool. It's happening in tempo with the song and is slowly just fading away. Pull it back up. Give you guys one last example so you can see what's going on. Zoom in so you can really see what's going on with the All right, cool. It's time to clean this up and package it to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new copy. I'm going to create the archive that I want you guys to send me. I'm going to create it on my desktop because this is the one that's going to get sent, and I'm also going to do some other work to it that'll mean that I need to actually archive everything I'm doing. Let's save my work that I'm done right now, and then let's do File, Save, Copy, In. Save, Copy, In, you want to make sure you check off all audio files. If you're using Pro Tools 11, here's where you would have an opportunity to revert back to an older version of Pro Tools. I don't currently own Pro Tools 11, but this is generally where you could actually save it as a version that I should be able to open. However, I don't want you to use Pro Tools 11 because I haven't tested it yet. I haven't tried it. In fact, I don't even own it yet. So if you're working on this project, make sure you're working on it in versions 8, 9, or 10. Please do not send me a Pro Tools 11 session. You're going to get a 0 on this. And I don't want you to get a 0 for something that you've worked really hard on for several weeks now. You're bound to be very upset, and I just don't want that to happen. If I can't open it, I can't grade it, so you get the idea. For right now, we're going to just check off all audio files. Oddly enough, you would think Pro Tools would default to this. And this is a really important item. If you don't check this off, you're going to basically send me a Pro Tools session without any of your audio files, in which case you're going to get a very bad score on this final project. Make sure you check off all audio files. You hit OK. It's going to ask you where you want to save it to. I'm going to point it back to my desktop. Notice it adds the name copy of. Go ahead and delete that. We don't need copy of in there. And I don't need version 5 anymore. We can call this final or final draft. In fact, for you, I want you to leave it off. You guys are going to have a nomenclature that's listed. You're going to name it last name, first name, plus the name of the artist, name of the song. For right now, I'm just going to leave it as is. We'll save it to my desktop. This will actually take a second. It's got to copy all the files. It's creating brand new copies of these files. So if I was to go from another studio, say I'm going to take this project and I know I want to go work on it over at my friend's house. This is the process you would do. Because if you don't do this, you could show up at your friend's house and move everything over to a drive, and you would probably be missing some files. If you follow this process, it's going to copy all of your files, and that way you don't have any issues. Imagine if I had been choosing add instead of copy whenever adding files earlier. This would have then collected all of those files together and then basically got them into one specific folder. That way we could move from studio to studio without any issues, knowing that all of our files are going to be there for us when we show up. Cool. Files are now copying over. Does anybody have any questions about the save, copy, in process? Awesome. Excellent. Cool. Hopefully you guys have gotten used to this. So now, notice when I'm done with this, it doesn't put me in the new save, copy, in version. I'm still in the old version 5. So if I want to be in the new version to do any changes to it, we have to close out of this one. Shift Command W. I've already saved it, so we can click Don't Save. Now let's go find it on my desktop. Here we go. Here's the session. Notice I have a new session folder with copies of all the audio files. But I'm about to do some stuff that's going to be destructive to these files. That's why I did a save, copy, in before I did some of the processes you're about to see me do. There's a lot of dead air in these files. So I want to get rid of any dead air in these files, and I also want to top and tail these files. I'll show you what I mean by that. Excellent. So here's my session. Now let me show you something here. Let's show all the tracks in the session. Let's make sure I don't have any tracks that are unnamed. This one's got a funky name. Let's rename this one. It's probably just left over from something I imported. Neo Soul. I don't mind calling it Neo Soul, but how about Neo Soul just percussion. Cool. That looks good. Looking here to see if I have anything else that's not named correctly. Everything looks like it's named well. In the audio files folder, basically I don't want anything named audio 1 like you see here. But what's probably going to get rid of that is a process I'm about to show you here. So let's center our session so we can see how it looks. Option F will fill the screen. Spread it out a little bit, get my tracks to like a medium or small height so we can actually see on each track. Session looks pretty good. Everything looks tight. I'm going to show you something here. Shift-Command-U will select any unused files. Now, let me show you what I just did, but that was the quick key way. Shift-Command-U, and then Shift-Command-Me will prompt me to clean up some things. But before we do all this, I want to actually show you what it is I'm doing. So we can also do this from the Clips menu or the Regions menu. Let's go over here, and we will do select, and I did select unused, Shift-Command-U, right? So what that's showing me is over here in my regions list, anything that is highlighted, these files are no longer even being used. Probably something I trimmed down or something I did that I didn't like and I didn't need it anymore. So we're going to get rid of those. But before we do that, there's a lot of dead space. I want to get rid of this. Basically, I'm going to put myself in grid mode, put myself to 1 bar increments, and then just get rid of anything that I don't need. I don't need that. I don't need that. To give you an example of what this is really doing, let me hide Pro Tools. Let's take a look at the size of this project. Command I. So this is 822 megabytes. Now, but it's 822 megabytes. Even though I'm throwing away these dead air pieces, it's not really throwing them away quite yet. And I'll show you what I mean by that. We're going to do the same thing for this one. I don't want to see any extraneous dead air in your session. This is one of the things that gets students the most. I end up marking off students left and right for just having wasted dead space. Let's get back to our waveform on this track. That way we can get rid of stuff where there is vocals. Zoom in on that to make sure I'm not actually clipping into the vocals, and I'm not. Good. Do the same thing here. And I can see I'm actually starting to clip into that, which is bad. So we got to back up just a little bit here. I don't mind having like a little bit of a lead-in section like that. I don't have a problem with that at all. I just don't want big spanses of geez, this was multiple bars. That was 7 bars worth of dead air. It's wasted space. Basically just trying to get the session down to a manageable size. Here's a track, this percussion track here. We're going to let go of the group real quick. This track, Option F, oops. Center it. Yeah, it's got all kinds of stuff in it that we're no longer using. You can just totally get rid of it. In fact, bang. All right. Scroll down, take a look at the rest of my tracks. It's got some dead air at the beginning we can get rid of. So zoom in, make sure I'm not trimming off anything that we needed. Yeah, we can trim right up to the beginning of that. Cool. Oh, and look at this. There's a lot of tracks here that just have all kinds of stuff in it that we don't need. All these effects tracks. So even though you're seeing me throw stuff away, it's actually not getting rid of information. If I were to hide Pro Tools and go back over to the session itself, take a look at it, you'll see it's the same size. We're going to change that here in a minute, though. I'll show you what I mean. Let's do the same thing with this track. We'll center it. Oh, there's all kinds of dead air in this. Somebody mentioned that they had the files and they moved them and the timing is off. Just make sure that when you're importing the files, you leave them in their original spot. If you're finding they're being moved, that means that you're in shuffle mode and you're deleting stuff and it's moving them. Just make sure you're not in shuffle mode. So chances are that's probably what's going on. You're in shuffle mode. Let's put myself back in grid real quick. Let's keep it nice and uniform. Delete. Yeah, stay out of shuffle mode. Shuffle mode, you're probably not going to use shuffle mode hardly ever when you're doing music production. Just keep that in mind. I'm going to zoom in on that one to make sure I didn't get rid of a tail. I bet I did on the end of this file here. Yeah, try not to make sure you get rid of any tail. I could really tell by making the waveform height a little bit bigger. And that would show me that, I didn't clip it off too bad, but I did slightly. Let's go down a little bit further and see what we got with the rest of these files, because there's still a lot more of these that are doing very similar process. So let's take a look at this one. A lot of dead space in the middle of it. Again, I am going to count you off if you give me sessions that have a lot of dead air in them. It's one of the more common things that students get marked off on. So I'm kind of letting you know in advance what are the more important things that I typically am going to count off for, because these are very common. I see these all the time. I'd say 90% of the class, even though I'm telling them this, is still going to send me files that have dead air in them. And remember, I did a save copy in first before I did this, and I'll show you why. That's pretty important. Okay. Everything looks good. No dead air in my session anymore. Here's a spot that needs to be trimmed up. Let's go look at it. I still think I can get a little bit of space off these. If we go down and change my grid resolution to 8 notes, there's still a lot of dead air we can get rid of here. Cool. Let's look at this one and look at the back end. Yeah, there's a bunch there we can get rid of. Okay, I'm pretty happy with everything as it is. Let's take a look, make sure everything looks good. Ooh, this guy doesn't look good. There's some dead air here too. Good thing I checked on that. Yep, that's got to go away. Delete this file as well. Option F. Back end of this file, so we can get a little bit off of this. There we go. Coolio. I think everything else looks good. Notice if I double click on the magnifying glass, it'll show all your tracks. And you can just resize them so you can actually just kind of get a visual. It's looking like the strings track could use a little bit more trimming as well. No, it's all there. All right, cool. So make all the tracks a little bit larger. Just page down. Look at them all. Make sure they look good. I do a little bit of trimming on this guy here. Okay, I think I'm pretty satisfied with everything from here on out, though. All right, so what I want to do now is I want to get rid of, looks like someone mentioned they lost audio. Just go ahead and refresh your browser. If you can't hear me, though, I'll probably need to type that in. Sorry if you lost your audio. I just got a message from a student saying they lost their audio. Okay, good, great, awesome, cool. All right, so let's do Shift-Command-U, which again will select all the unused parts. Doesn't seem like it selected a lot. It really should have selected a whole bunch of stuff. Shift-Command-U. All right, there you go. And let's just go ahead and delete this stuff. We don't even need it anymore. It's not in use in the session, so we want to get rid of it. So Shift-Command-U, Shift-Command-B. Remember, those are the same things I just showed you over here. So if we go and select any unused, so it's Clips menu, select unused. That shows us everything that's in the session that's no longer in use. And then we basically want to remove them. So when you go to clear, you have two options. If you choose to remove them, it's simply going to remove them from your regions list, but they're still in your audio files folder. This is where you actually want to delete them. But before you do this process, make sure you did that file save copy in first, and you're working from your save copy in. Ooh, Gesundheit, bless me. Make sure you're working in your save copy in version, because this is a destructive process. When I delete these files will be gone for all time and eternity. So there's no way for you to get these back. That's why I did a save copy in first. So we'll go ahead and we'll delete these. It's going to go in through and prompt me for every single one of these. I'm just going to hold Option. That way we say yes. And this should have dramatically improved the file size of our session. Let's go take a look. Well, it wasn't dramatic, but it did bring it back at least 100 megabytes. So got rid of a lot of the files in our session, and it got rid of stuff that's no longer in use. It also got rid of files that were named Audio 1, Audio 2, Audio 3, and you can see we only have the files that we need in our session. Cool. So now we're ready to deliver this. This is all wrapped up and done. So I'm going to save my session. We'll go ahead and we'll quit Pro Tools. I no longer need Pro Tools open. And you're simply going to take this, you're going to compress it, right-click, compress. And once this is done being compressed, you're going to submit this to Dropbox. Now, I believe the directives ask for you guys to email this to me. And if you email it to me, I'm not going to mark you off. I actually want you to do just like you've done with any of your other assignments. I actually want you to put it into your Dropbox, create a downloadable link, put that on a text document, and post that text document to FSO before the deadline. Again, because I know some of our directives actually ask you to email it to me. If you email it to me, I'm not going to count you off, and it's not that big of a deal. But I would like for you just to follow the same pattern that we've done throughout the entire month, and that way everything just goes back to FSO. What it does is it keeps my email from getting cluttered, and it helps let me know that no matter what, you made the deadline because it made it on the FSO platform. Of course, I can check in my email, and I can look at the time stamp on it and see when you did it. But I'd rather just get your work downloaded from FSO. So just understand that that's the way I really need for you to submit this. So get this up to your Dropbox, get a downloadable link, and post that downloadable link to a text doc, a Word doc, or a Pages doc. Post that to FSO, and life will be good. And that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up class. We've got about 5 minutes left of class, and I want to see if you guys have any questions for anything that you guys saw tonight. And if we need to go over something or review something, that's fine. Main topics for tonight is we showed you automation. Automation is going to need to be done to volume and pan, which I didn't show you, but I showed you the harder version of doing it. I showed you doing it to a plugin. Typically, that's where students mess up, is actually automating in any of the plugins. How do I know that? I can simply open up Pro Tools and go through all the automation lanes, and I can see quickly and easily what you've done as far as your automation. I'll kind of give you a quick glimpse as to how I do that. We'll go ahead and launch Pro Tools. Hey, so guys, I think there were probably several questions. I was trying to move forward because typically there's so much information as far as the delivery and how to clean up your sessions that a lot of times this one runs over. And I know you guys would probably rather be working in Pro Tools instead of sitting here listening to me. And so you might have noticed, and I hope you didn't feel like I was ignoring your questions, but generally I try to leave the questions to the end. So if there were questions that you asked earlier and I didn't answer them, I apologize. But I was trying to save it till the end of our session, and that way we would make sure that we covered the main topics for today. Time-based routing, audio subgroups, and your automation. So if you guys have any questions concerning those, I'm going to go ahead and open up Pro Tools. I'm going to show you actually how I check to view your automation, so it really shows me whether you've done the automation correctly or not. Frederick asked if you want to have a click track in the final. Yes, it is a requirement. One of the reasons why is because I'm going to check your work. I'm going to, if I think that you didn't actually change your tempo to make sure that the grid matches the audio, well, I'm going to open up your click track and I'm going to play it against your work. And if they don't line up, you're going to get marked off for it. Simple as that. So we go ahead and we open up the session. I'm going to show you guys how I actually check for your automation. You might kind of think this is interesting too, because I'm going to show you how to quickly see all your automation lanes. So here's what I typically am going to do. And of course, I didn't do tons of automation today. I just kind of whipped through it really quickly. If I hold down Control, Option, and Command, and I hit my right and left arrow keys, it's showing me all your different automation lanes inside of Pro Tools. And if you want, I can quickly open up the tracks, make them a little bit bigger so you can actually see what's going on. Let me make these all a little bit larger so you can see. Right now, we're looking at Blocks View. Blocks View just simply doesn't show you the waveform. On older systems, this helped in playing back or bouncing sessions because it didn't have to redraw the waveform. It just simply showed them in blocks. I hold down Option and change all tracks to be waveform. This is what we're used to seeing. And I'm simply just holding down Option and going through all of these. I'm looking at the volume trim, looking at mutes, looking at pans. But if I hold down Control, Option, Command, and use my right and left arrow keys, it's actually quickly doing that for me. It's rotating through all of those different playlist views. That's why we call tracks playlists inside of Pro Tools. Because we're actually quickly zipping through all the different playlist views. Cool. So that's that. So any other questions for this evening? Yeah, George is asking about the actual name of the session. So yeah, last name, first initial, and then the project session song title and the naming of the folder itself. So if you want me to do this as though I am submitting this, I should have done a file, save copy into my desktop, check off all audio files, hit OK. I'm going to make sure it's on my desktop. We'll get rid of copy of. And in this case, it would be Berry, BERRY underscore J underscore Dynasty underscore electric. You can leave a dash there if you want. I don't have a problem with there being a dash for Euphoria. And then just save this to your desktop. I'm going to cancel it because we already have done that process. Just kind of showing you what's going on. But good questions, though. Someone said final project is uploaded to Dropbox, not just zipped and uploaded to FSO. So can someone tell me the file size limitation? And by the way, that's a good question. Gene, that was a very good question. You're not the only person that's going to have that question. Yeah, the 100 megabyte limit is going to get us. So that's why you can't upload it to FSO. And this is why you're going to have to use your Dropbox account and post up to FSO a downloadable link that I'll be able to access. Yeah, someone's asking about a Pro Tools 11. If you update to 11, please do not use 11 for this project. I don't have 11. I won't be able to open your project. If you send me a Pro Tools 11 session, you will get a 0 on this. And you'll probably be very upset because you probably worked very hard on this. So please don't send me a Pro Tools 11 session. I can't open it. Sorry. So make sure you're using version 8, 9, or 10, and you'll be fine. Yeah, they have an update in the system updater. You're more than welcome to update once you get out of this class, but for right now, I wouldn't even bother. Gene's saying that Pro Tools 11, 10, and 11 can exist. While I've seen this happen, I haven't done it myself, and so I don't know the reliability of it. So if you guys can vouch that it works and it works flawless, then I don't have a problem, but just understand and make sure that you're sending me either an 8, 9, or 10 session, not a Pro Tools 11. Yeah, I know. I'm gonna have to go back and change that. Somebody mentioned that the dashboard for this doesn't actually have a submit on it, so I'm actually gonna do that first thing when we get done with tonight's class. I'm gonna go back and change this so that you guys can post up your text doc or your Word doc or your Pages doc. That's gonna be one of the first things I'm gonna do. So I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. Thanks, Kevin. George, you're going to want to use your trim tool or your selector tool, however you want to delete those, but just make sure that you are in grid mode and so your files won't move for the dead space that you have at the beginning of your tracks. No Justin TV to watch the videos. I don't know if you've noticed all month long, we've posted archives of these videos, and I've also changed, by the way, Mayessa, I apologize if I'm butchering your name. Where are you seeing information about Justin TV? I think that might have been in one of our videos, but we no longer use Justin TV. So I'm not sure where you're seeing that information that refers to Justin TV, but please post to me either in an email or you can let me know here in this chat. It's in FSO. I think that's going to be the video on FSO because we no longer use Justin TV, and so I think that might be confusing for you. All of these videos, you can just watch them outright through the archive that'll be posted. That's posted to your announcement section. And then we're asking you to use VLC. That was an assignment for you to do at the very beginning of the month so that you have this information can be played back. Any of the files can be played back through VLC. Yeah, awesome. And I'm glad you brought that up. So I apologize if you have conflicting information. It was dealing with the Justin TV used to be for downloading the video lectures, but I decided to get rid of it. It was just a pain because Justin TV meant you had to actually sign in for this Justin TV service. To make a long story short, it was just a pain in the butt for the students, and I decided to drop it and just simplify the process for you guys. Cool. Any other questions for tonight? Well, listen, guys, I appreciate you guys coming out tonight and hanging out. We're going to wrap it up. And in the event you do have any further questions or you need any other clarification, don't be afraid to hit me up. Hit me up via iChat or email, and we'll be sure and make connection. Thanks for coming out tonight, guys. Take care. Good night.